So I promised a quick introduction to both of the Strauss pieces, so if you'll allow me, I'll give you a quick overview of what you're about to hear. It's the Suite from Rosenkavalier, which is an opera by Strauss. It's his most popular opera, one of the most popular operas ever written, and it really is about four main protagonists. The first one is the Marschallin, who is a princess, and her lover, the young and very handsome, beautiful man called Count Octavian, who is played, in order that he is beautiful, by a woman in the opera. And then we have the princess's rather gaudy and not very nice cousin called Baron Ox, who's a bit of an oaf. And then we have the woman to whom he is betrothed, who's a beautiful young woman called Sophie, who doesn't really want to marry him. So, beginning of the opera, what's happening? That's what you hear first in this suite. We see the Marschallin, the princess, lying in bed with Count Octavian, scandalous after a night of passion. So the music begins with a huge amount of passion, because that's exactly what it's depicting. It's depicting this beautiful young man with this slightly older woman after a night of passion. And that's what happens for the first 4 minutes of the opera, and it's exactly as you would hear it if we were down in the pit in the opera house, so nothing's changed there. Then, in the suite, we skip the whole of Act 1, because I've told you what happens. You meet all these characters. That's all that happens in Act 1, okay? And it's established that they all have these different characteristics. So we skip to Act 2. And what's happened here is that Baron Ox, the cousin of the princess who's having the affair with Count Octavian, has sent Count Octavian to offer a rose of engagement to Sophie. It's the traditional rose. It's a silver rose, which is why it's called the Rosenkavalier, because he's the cavalier who brings the rose. And you'll hear the moment when he arrives. Sophie's friend is looking out the window. She's incredibly excited. The music gets more and more excitable, and then suddenly there's this big chord, and you hear these raindrop, strange chromatic chords kind of dropping. Ding dong, ding dong, dong, ding dong. That is the motif for the rose, okay, and it'll come back throughout the suite. So what happens? Octavian is supposed to give this rose of engagement to Sophie, whom his baron is going to marry, but they fall in love immediately. And what happens is the next 3 minutes you hear love music as they sing to one another how beautiful they find each other, and it's going to cause a problem, because now Baron Ox is going to find out, which is exactly what happens. Their love duet gets disrupted by some people who discover them speaking like this to one another, and the music becomes furious again until it ends with Baron Ox himself coming in and breaking up proceedings. And you'll hear that it goes bop-bom, bop-bop, bop-bom, down in the low part of the orchestra. There's a little cut then in the opera again, and he's decided to drink to make himself happy, because he's been cuckolded by this lady, Sophie. So he has a drink, and he has a beautiful merry waltz, which is depicted by our concertmaster and by the oboe, and he decides that it's fine, because he's received a letter from someone called Mariandel, who he met in Act 1. And Mariandel is, in fact, Count Octavian, who was dressed as a woman. So it's a woman dressed as a man dressed as a woman. And she sent him a note saying, I think you're wonderful, and they're trying to trap him. So he says, everything's fine, I'm going to have a drink, all women love me, I'm wonderful. We cut then to the end of Act 3, and he's been caught out. He went to have a liaison with Mariandel, and it's all finished, and now we know that Octavian and Sophie can be together. But for them to be together, the princess has to let go of Octavian. She has to say, go and be with Sophie. And in some of the most beautiful music, frankly, ever written about love, you hear the two lovers, Sophie and Count Octavian, saying, well, now we can be together. And at the same time, you hear the Marschallin, the princess, saying, I've reached an age where this young man is no longer interested in me, and he's moved on. I have to accept that my life has changed now. I'm going to let him go because I love him so much. And so if you find the music bittersweet as well as ravishingly beautiful, it's exactly what Strauss wanted. And then the suite ends with music that was written just for the suite. It's a waltz, because this is set in Vienna in the late 19th century, and that's what they did. They danced around to waltzes. Okay, have fun.